It was about 15 years ago when this happened, and I had planned to take it to my grave. But recently, the nightmares have started up again. I was a hunter, though now you're not going to find a gun anywhere near my person. At the time, I was extremely excited for this hunting season. The year before last, I had broken my leg just before it began, and I missed out. There were some local woods just out the back that I would always go to, and it was simply beautiful this time of year. I had set off just before sunrise, hiking into the woods to find my favorite place. It was a small circular clearing where the trees around it hugged it like the darkness around candlelight. When I arrived, I set up my blind, and I was enjoying some coffee as the sun came peeking over the mountains. I didn't get any action all day. I was just about to start considering packing up when I saw it. Coming into my clearing from the tree line on the opposite side was a small herd of deer. And through the brush, I could see antlers of a stag. I couldn't see his body, but the way he was moving about, I could tell the way that he was positioned. He didn't come into the clearing with the rest of his herd. He stayed back. I steadied myself and lined my shot. I would have waited to get better visuals, but I wasn't feeling very confident that I could. He was staying around the outside. I didn't think I could possibly get a better look at the animal without startling the herd. I took the shot. I was overjoyed when I saw those antlers drop. I got him, I thought to myself as I put my gun down beside me. The deer were scattering into the tree line. I double-checked that I had my hunting knife, and I went off to go claim my kill. It took me about 15 minutes to walk over there, to where I saw the antlers drop. When I got there, I indeed found a fresh blood trail. I was absolutely dismayed. I thought I had killed it in one shot, but this means the poor thing is bleeding out slowly as it tries to get away. I hate it when the animals suffer. I actually bring my dressed bucks to my uncle, who owns a butcher's, and he does the rest for me. I'm usually stocked up all winter. There was already a ton of leaf litter on the ground, and I could see by the marks that it must have been dragging a leg or something, so I figured I'd find it soon enough. It took me another 10 odd minutes to find it, but when I got there, what I found at the end of the blood trail wasn't a deer. What laid on the ground was an old man. He had the headdress of a deer on his head and pelt over his shoulders, but apart from that he was completely naked. Very dirty, naked, and he stunk. He was dead. He was laying in a pool of blood. He wasn't moving. I stared at him, which could have been seconds or hours, I don't know. But when I snapped back, I was terrified at what I had done. I left him there, exactly as he was. I didn't touch him. I didn't know what else to do. I'd killed someone. I have no idea why this naked old man was dressed up as a deer in hunting season. Maybe he had some kind of death wish and wanted to go out this way, I don't know. I was just the unlucky soul to be able to do it for him. But as soon as I had realized what exactly had happened, I sprinted back to my blind, folded it down, slung the rifle over my shoulder, and I got out of there. I never told anyone what I did. I watched the news for weeks afterwards, seeing if there was any reports of some old dead man found in the woods. There was nothing. The next year, on the anniversary, I actually took my gun and I threw it into the fireplace and destroyed it. To this day, I've never gone hunting again, and I will never touch a gun again. It was my 26th birthday, and 4 of my friends and myself decided to go camping along the Appalachian Trail. Sam, Justin, Susan, Jen, and myself set off. After hiking about 7 hours, we stopped and made camp. We were so damn happy for this trip. We were planning on camping for at least 2 nights. I know people usually trek this whole trail, but that's not what we were here for. We just wanted to have some fun. Our first night there, we sat around the fire smoking joints and drinking beers. We did the classic, making s'mores on the fire and telling ghost stories with a torch. It was a blast of a night. Everyone was in high spirits, having a great time. The next day was spent looking for suitable firewood, as we realized that our compacted wooden logs burnt a lot faster than expected, and what we had left wasn't going to last very much longer into the next night. I remember sitting by our fire pit as the sun was going down, trying to make a new fire with the green wood, my ferro stick. Sam comes over and he says, "Hey, I brought something for your actual birthday night." Pulls out a little baggie with 5 pills in it. 1 for each of us. He handed me mine and a beer and watched me take it. After the fire was roaring and we all sat around, everyone by then had taken their pill and we were just waiting for it to take effect. And that's where it went blank. I have no memory after that. I ended up hearing Jester's recount of the event sometime later. But after that night, when I woke up, I was cuffed to a hospital bed. No recollection past taking the pill. Maybe an hour after that, but that's it. This is what he said happened. Everything was fine for a number of hours after we took our pills. But then for some reason, I started to laugh uncontrollably. Everyone initially was laughing along with me. But when they all died out, I didn't stop. I ended up picking up a branch that was sticking out of the fire and I swung it at one of the tents, causing it to catch alight. Everyone scurried into action trying to put out the fire and I just laughed uncontrollably. Susan started yelling at me, asking me what the hell I thought I was doing. I picked up a knife and I started to swing it at her. She started to scream and everyone realized what was going on and they tried to disarm me. Jen, the unlucky one, ended up getting a slash to his upper thigh. At this point, everyone realized that I had completely lost my mind and started to back off in an attempt to talk me down instead. I just didn't react apart from laughing. I ended up launching at Susan and she started to run. A chase ensued and I chased her into the trees, out of sight from everyone else. Sam and Justin managed to call for help and patch up Jen while a search and rescue team went looking for me and Susan. They found me passed out less than a day later with cuts and scrapes all over. It was about a 20-minute walk from our campsite. But Susan was never located. The knife I was wielding was found still in my hand. The results say that only Jen's blood was present. But what happened to Susan? To this day, no one knows what happened. She might have ran so far in and gotten lost for good. Maybe she found safety but never came back because she was just too scared. Or maybe something darker happened. Maybe I found her. Maybe I just didn't use the knife. Personally, I'd like to think that nothing like that happened. I wouldn't have thought that I would be capable of doing any of these things that they say. But for me, it's just a blank box in my mind that I can't seem to get a hold of no matter how much I try. Whenever I try really hard to remember, it's just black, empty. I've been locked away in a care facility for a number of years, and I've only just been set free. I had a good long time to consider myself and what might have happened. I like to think Susan is alive out there somewhere, just never wanting to come near me again. The best thing I can come up with is maybe I have a split personality. Someone who only comes out under extreme circumstances. Someone else must have been in control of me. But I will never put myself in that position again. Hi everyone. Before we get on to the next story, I just want to thank you all for being here and to remind you to please like, comment, and subscribe. Now on to the next one. My girlfriend at the time, her name was Chloe. She and I decided to go camping at the Rogue River National Forest campgrounds in Oregon. It was her birthday weekend. This was about 3 years ago. Since then, we have separated. Unfortunately, we couldn't get over the fact that we both reminded each other of this event that all we wanted to do was forget. I hope she's doing well. It was her 30th birthday that Saturday in question. We'd been talking about this trip forever. Initially, she was going to have her birthday with her sister, but her sister won a cruise, and it threw out the birthday celebration plans. So we decided this was a perfect opportunity to make the trip. Chloe was a rather experienced camper. She always told stories of her sister and her father making annual trips out, right up to the point that he passed from health complications just a few years back. So in her own way, this trip added so much to her, as a little nod to him and his memory. We had been hiking for about 6 hours off trail. I know this sounds dumb, but we had technology on our side, plenty of spare batteries, and we were also both half decent with navigation and our maps. I remember we were casually talking about edible foraging when we came across something. It was a giant flat rock placed upon smaller rocks, kind of like a giant table area. The ground around it didn't grow any plants or grass. Circle was maybe a 2-meter radius. It was definitely an altar. We looked around for a bit and laughed that this is where rituals and sacrifices took place. At the time, we figured it was some elaborate joke that people had set up to create conspiracy and mystery, like the people do with crop circles. Things to draw in conversation around the area so people come and look and find these things. We had spent too long checking out the area to the point that we had lost all of our travel time, and we had to set up camp nearby. There was a small creek about 200 meters away. We liked the sound of it, so we set up between the site and the creek. A tent was not a normal tent you have on the ground. We had something called a Safari Connect. It's a suspended tent that gets attached to like 3 trees in a 3-way hammock. This tent is probably why we're still alive today. Chloe loves sleeping up high, and I have always been put off camping due to the fear of wild animals like bears. So we put our tent up as high as we possibly could. The trees were brilliant and strong. We had no issues scaling up the trees and got our tent more than 20 foot off the ground. Because of our tent's arrangements, we didn't bother setting up a campfire. Instead, we just had little powered battery lanterns and these hot choc cans. Hot choc cans are these canned hot chocolate beverages that they have a button on the underside of the can that heats it up. Our lanterns were on a low glow and we were snuggling and drinking our hot chocolates. It was about 11 p.m. at the stage when we first started to hear it. Chanting in the distance. We were both instantly terrified. I could feel Chloe tense up as soon as she registered what we were hearing. We turned off the lanterns and we laid there as quiet as the dead. The chanting got closer and closer. At the time, I was very thankful our tent was brown and not those fluoro colours that we had initially been considering. The only reason why we got the brown one was that it was the only colour left in the 2-person tent. We laid perfectly still as we saw the glow starting to become brighter and brighter till it was about 100 metres away. It stopped at the altar. We could hear muffled screaming and chanting of a number of voices, maybe 4 or 5 people. The chanting eventually turned into one person who was yelling at the top of their lungs in some strange language that we couldn't understand. Periodically, it would be answered by other voices. The muffled screams could also be heard through the forest. We knew better than to go and try and save them. Here we were, just 2 people. We weren't armed. We weren't strong. We also had no idea how many people were there. We'd end up getting ourselves killed. Whatever ceremony they were doing lasted for about an hour before the screams fell silent suddenly. Then we heard footsteps. 2 of the participants were coming our way. They were holding small glow sticks to light their way, and a bucket each. They ended up walking directly beneath our tent. They were heading for the stream. On the way back, they were carrying 2 full buckets of water. They walked under us again. They didn't see us. They never said a word. All they had to do was look up and we would have lost our lives that night. About a half an hour later, the glow faded. We also didn't say a single word to each other the rest of the night. We didn't sleep either. As soon as it was daybreak, we packed everything up in silence and we got the hell out of there. It only took us 4 hours on the way back, but 6 on the way there. We never looked at the altar on the way back. We skirted around it so we didn't even have to see it.